Shalom. This is Sharon Cluck with Mind of Messiah Ministries, and the following video is from a Hear the Watchman podcast. They meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays each week. Because of all the recent conversation on social media about the rapture that was supposed to occur on Feast of Trumpets this year, but it did not. So I was asked to give some input as to what my thoughts were on that, and biblically, why we can't really know what time it is and what year it is. I hope you stay to the end. Give us a like, a share, a subscribe. Leave your comments below. I want to hear what you have to say. Please give me questions and I will get back to you. I thank you for watching. God bless you. I think you're going to learn a lot in this video. If you're looking for truth, if you are a truth seeker, you will want to watch this video. Thank you.
But it's good to see everyone. Our regular Thursday night Zoom fellowship meeting. And tonight, it's been bugging me. And our speaker tonight posted something about it, and so did a bunch of other people. But it's really been bothering me about this rapture hoax. It was going to be the 23rd. And then, we meant the 24th. And in the 11 years that I've been doing Hear the Watchman as a ministry, it seems like every year somebody comes out and says, this is it, it's the rapture, And the problem with that is, in my opinion, and we'll see what Sharon has to say about it, but in my opinion, it makes us as Christians look like, well, why would I listen to them? They keep saying this is going to happen and nothing ever happens. And that's the danger, besides the fact that the Bible clearly tells us that no human, is ever going to be able to pick the date, And the other thing is, why are we so obsessed about it? Like, look if it happens, it happens. It'll play out however God wants it to play out. But they're certainly not going to call Mike Kerr or Sharon Cluck. Jesus isn't going to call us up and say, hey, man, should I hop down today or what? So we just got to be ready, and we have to do what we have to do to serve Jesus from now until whatever date that is. So, Sharon, I'm curious, what's your read on all that?
Well, Mike, I've been watching a lot of stuff on social media and TikTok, and I'm not on there a lot, but what I'm seeing when I get on there is all this stuff about we've got rapture coming and everybody needs to get ready. So I wanted so bad to respond to those people, but I couldn't do it without giving them greater detail. And I don't have a call to be explaining this stuff. I'm going to explain some of it tonight, why I believe that it can't be right now. But I got a call this morning, or a text this morning from somebody that said Joshua was right. And I didn't even know who Joshua was, but I looked at the text so I watched the video, and they said, see, it's still coming on the Feast of Trumpets. It'll still be here on the Feast of Trumpets, but we used the Julian calendar we used the wrong calendar. I'm thinking, oh my God. They use the wrong calendar all the time. All of us are using the wrong calendar. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. So I first want to address the recent rapture hype, and I'm not calling it a hoax because we've all seen across social media and the internet, and even TikTok told us that if we didn't believe that Yeshua was coming this year, that we weren't even saved. And I went, oh my gosh, that was a really strong statement. So if you wouldn't believe that was going to happen and that they heard from God, then that meant that you weren't hearing from God, because they were hearing from God, but you weren't. And they were very firm and very convinced that they had heard from God. So it's not really a hoax. They were absolutely trying to warn people. They thought, oh my God, Jesus is going to come and people are going to be left behind. And they were really worried about people. They were worried about us because we weren't believing it. So they didn't really do this intentionally. They really believed it. So a hoax is a deliberate deception or a trick that's designed to make people believe something false. It typically involves fabricating a story, an event, or a claim with the intent to mislead mislead somebody or to manipulate them or maybe even to entertain them. Maybe some of that was for that. I don't know. But a hoax can range from a harmless prank to serious frauds or even often exploit trust or curiosity, and it can actually bring fear. And that's what I think that happens here is that we were meeting here a number of years ago when I had the house church, and I had taught on the second coming of the Lord. And when I talked about the things in Matthew 24, it upset this person so bad that she told me the next time I talked to her, she said, you upset me so bad, I got a migraine headache. I had a headache all the way home. And I said, what was the problem? And she said, because you're talking about that Jesus isn't coming right away, but I know that he is. And so I tried to talk to her about that and make some sense. Well, we were getting ready to have the Feast of Trumpets. This is 2 years ago. And we were planning the potluck for every night, what we were going to have, who was going to be teaching, what we were going to do for tabernacles. And she said, I won't be here. And one of the other people said, why won't you be here? She said, I'm being raptured. And we're going, well, if you're getting raptured, so are we. And she went, well, I won't be here, so I'm not going to help with any of this stuff, so don't even ask me. I went, okay. Well, she didn't show up for the Feast of Trumpets. And when she did show up, she was so upset and angry. And it was like, how could I have been so deceived? I just knew that Jesus was coming. And I saw all of the discouragement and the disheartening experience that she was going through. She felt like she couldn't trust God. She couldn't trust herself. She couldn't hear from God. And that's some of the danger of this, is not just that Christians as a group look like we don't have it together or that we don't know if we're coming or going. It's for people's personal life. They're really devastated over this. And so even now what they're doing is they're still trying to say, well, we didn't get it wrong. He's still coming. It's only 13 days. 13 days from now, he's still coming. And they're still putting this stuff out there. So this was not an intentional deception. It's not false information that somebody put out there intentionally to deceive us. It's something they really believe. There's an element of truth. It makes it look like it's believable or that it's coming from somebody authoritative. And so if you can say, well, I heard this from God, then you're supposed to listen because I heard it from God. And maybe you don't know how to hear from God, but I heard for you. If it's an intentional thing, they're trying to manipulate us. It's aimed at provoking a reaction like shock or outrage, sympathy, or some kind of action. So a true hoax comes from the form of like fake news. That's a true hoax. News stories, fabricated history or artifacts that are made up, and virtual internet rumors. And so, we've got all kinds of those things that happen, but this was not intentional. They really had people really embracing a hopeful anticipation. A lot of people's hearts are hurt over this. A lot of people are questioning their walk with the Lord. They're questioning if they can believe the Bible or if they can believe other people. So the truth is that people have believed these claims about the rapture with all of their heart, and they're entirely sure that they've heard from God. And what's it all based on? Well, this is what it's based on. It is based on people's newfound understanding of the feast of the Lord. That's what it's based on. They have not studied the scriptures. They don't know the Old Testament. They don't know where these feasts came from, but they've learned about them, and they have learned that Jesus fulfilled the first 3 feasts, which he did, and they know that the next one to be fulfilled is the Feast of Trumpets. So every year when we hit that time of the Feast of Trumpets, people are all excited. This must be the year. This must be the year. So as a disclaimer, I want to say that I too have taught that Yeshua will come on the Feast of Trumpets, and he may well do that. And I'm not denying that he didn't fulfill the spring feast and that he's not going to fulfill the Feast of Trumpets. He will. So the real question is, does anybody really know when that will be or what year? There's more questions than that, but that's the main issue. How many times have you heard that we are in the year of Jubilee? I don't know about you, but I hear that all the time. Somebody will say, this is a Jubilee year. And then next year they go, oh, they had that wrong. This is a Jubilee year. So I've heard that numerous times, and actually nobody really knows that either. It's all of this mathematical calculation that is an act of futility. And that's what people are doing. They're taking the scriptures. They're trying to make it say something. They're taking the 70 weeks of Daniel. They're trying to figure it out and make it say something. So when Daniel knew that it was time to return to Jerusalem, it was because he read that in the scroll of Jeremiah. So if he was 14 years old when he went into captivity, he could figure out that when he's 84, it would be time to return to the land because it was all happening in his own lifetime. It was a short period of time. It wasn't centuries later where we've lost track of things and trying to refigure it out. He didn't have to do all the mathematical calculations that the American church spends countless hours trying to figure out. Yahweh tells Daniel that it was too difficult for him to figure out the 70 weeks that he'd been told about by the angel, and that he should just shut the book and let it happen in its own time. Yet somehow we believe that we can figure this out with our intellect. The Hebrew word for weeks, we're talking about 70 weeks. Hebrew word weeks is shavum, meaning 7, not necessarily weeks. People want to make that say what they want it to say. So the timeline involves 7 weeks plus 62 weeks plus 1 week. I am not going to go through this with you. I'm going to just give you a brief overview of why this gets so confusing. It's got cryptic references to an anointed one, a prince, a covenant, and desolation. Daniel 8:27, and then 12:8-9. So why are we required to decipher what heaven has already sealed? What makes us think we have to figure that? He told them to seal it up. So the angel tells Daniel to seal up the vision for a distant future. And we are deciding that that future is now, that it's right now, that it's this week. It may be soon, but we can't decide if it's this week. Only the Father knows that. So God invites us to seek his presence and not to conquer his mysteries. What we need to know is that Daniel's vision is not about decoding dates. It's about recognizing the rhythm of divine intervention. We're supposed to be discerning, to be able to know what time it is, but we're not supposed to have this calculated where we can control God and know what he's going to do next. Does that sound like we're supposed to understand? Are we told that we can count the number of the Antichrist name? Yes. Well, that we are supposed to figure that out because we're told to. Even that is encoded because when John wrote Revelations, he could not say specific phrases without being persecuted further. So it's just like if you go on TikTok, you can't say that person's dead or they killed somebody. You have to say they're unalive. Well, that's the same kind of thing that John had to deal with on the Isle of Patmos. He couldn't just come right out and say stuff or he would be persecuted further. So the culture of the time would have understood what John was saying when he gives the number of his name. Well, we've lost that in translation and in our culture. This is why I don't pay attention to this stuff. This is my own personal reason, because the first coming of Yeshua is a covert operation. Paul affirms that in 1 Corinthians 2:7, that we speak in wisdom of God in a mystery, which none of the rulers of this age understood, for had they known, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. So this is the deal. If you and I know, so does the devil. This wasn't just hidden from men. It was hidden from principalities, the first coming of Yeshua. The incarnation, the cross, the resurrection, they were all veiled. So it's like weakness masked in power. So we see Yeshua being crucified And what's going to happen? He's going to rise in power. We see death that births life. We see rejection concealed in his enthronement as a king. So it was like a divine ambush for the devil, for the principalities. They didn't know it was coming. If man can decode this whole thing, so can the enemy. That's why prophetic timelines like Daniel's 70 weeks are encoded. They're not puzzles for entertainment. They're encrypted dispatches for the remnant. The enemy is a legalist and a strategist. If the second coming were laid out in plain sight, he'd mobilize prematurely or sabotage the terrain. He would do something to sabotage the plan of God. So here's the twist. The second coming, it's covert. It's counterintuitive. It's not just covert, but it's the opposite of what one would think. Just like the devil didn't know that if he killed Jesus, that he was going to be overcome by his power. Well, if he knows when he's coming, he's going to show the opposite, or he's going to do something to undermine what the enemy is able to figure out. The second coming is a strategic concealment. No one knows the day or the hour, according to Matthew 24:36. It's just not about ignorance. We want it to be unpredictable. God wants it to be unpredictable for the enemy. So this activity that we go through to try to figure this out, it is just overwhelming. It's just an exercise that we do when we have the scriptures that tell us that nobody knows the day or the hour. And there's more to that. I'll explain that. So it's like a thief in the night, according to 1 Thessalonians 5:2. That evokes a stealthness, not a spectacle. It's about catching the enemy off guard. So I know that we're not to be caught off guard, not us, but this is something that we know in the spirit. It will not be a last call at the local bar, like the local bar says, oh, we're closing, last call, everybody get your last drink. Well, that's kind of how this was this past week. It was like, you got to get in, you got to believe in Jesus before the rapture comes. Do you think that's what Jesus is looking for? Or do you think he's looking for a bride who's made herself ready? So Yeshua is coming for a bride. Yes, there are deathbed conversions, but those are the exceptions. Yeshua is coming for the ones who love not their lives unto the death. Those who are willing to lay down their lives and stand and be overcome the evil one. According to Revelations 12:11, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. And the Lord of peace shall bruise or crush Satan under your feet, shortly, according to Romans 16:20. We do that. For all these people that were going to get raptured out this week, I wonder if any of them have ever crushed Satan under their feet yet. So when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction. That's 1 Thessalonians 5:3. Well, that applies misdirection as well. This has not happened yet. Israel is not in peace and safety. And if you like Israel or not, that's who this book is about. The Bible is about Israel. We've got to keep our eyes on Israel to be able to know what time it is. What's going on? The remnant isn't called to predict. They're called to perceive, to read the signs and not the schedule. So the remnant often carries revelation that's not meant to be understood by the masses. It's not like we're going to, the Lord speaks things to me frequently, and I don't go online and tell the whole world about it. I do like the mother of Yeshua. I just ponder this stuff, ponder it in my heart. How do I know that I'm absolutely right? I don't think I'm supposed to be shouting this from the housetop unless he specifically says, okay, go do this. The interception of the enemy is what we are up to. When we understand, when we hear from God, we don't run and tell everybody. Daniel's scroll is not broken by intellects are figuring things out. It's broken by Yeshua in his time and when the Father says so. If Yeshua doesn't know the time or the hour, why do we think that we should? Do you believe Yeshua doesn't know when the feast days are? Or when the new moon will appear? I think he does. So we don't decode to denominate, we discern, and we stay in alignment with the King. We don't chase dates, we cultivate readiness, we don't expose the strategies prematurely, we steward it in prayer, readying the remnant. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We just had a conference called The Remnant Rising. Well, we're supposed to be readying the remnant, keeping people from falling and strengthening each other to stand. So let me explain to you why the dates setting never moved me. Okay. This is part of my testimony, real quick. I've been learning Torah and the Old Testament for 20 years. I started in 2005. I've been observing the feast days for 17 years, and I have replaced the traditional American holidays with the biblical feast in my life. And they are called the Lord's Feast, not the Feast of the Jews. These are called Yahweh's Feast. The Sabbath has been established since the beginning of creation, and if you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, you're going to find out that Abraham was given these feast days when God made covenant with him way back before Sinai. In Genesis 26:5, because that Abraham obeyed my voice and he kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. That was done way before Israel was a nation, way before Sinai. Abraham was before the law. He kept all of God's laws. So what's happening is that people are taking things out of biblical context because they don't know the Torah and the prophets. They don't understand that everything that the New Testament writers wrote came right out of the front of the book. They didn't make this stuff up. They are preaching the same thing the prophets taught, the same thing that Moses taught. So when Paul told Timothy to study to show himself approved, a workman who can correctly divide the word, there was no New Testament. All they had was the Torah, the prophets, and the Psalms. And then they also had the intertestament books at that time. When Yeshua was alive, they relied a lot on the intertestament books, which we call now the Dead Sea Scrolls, or the Apocrypha. So this is what Paul is telling Timothy to study. So why does any of this matter? Okay, let's get down to why we can't know the right day for Yeshua's return. In Exodus 12, God gives the beginning of the year to Moses. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, and said, "This month shall be unto you the beginning of months, and it shall be the first month of the year." When did they leave Egypt? They left Egypt in the spring when the barley was ripe, and they said that was about the time they were going to have Passover. So speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of the month, this is the same chapter, next verse, in the 10th day of the month, they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb of the house. So verse 1 says this is the beginning of the year, and the third one says take a lamb. They're getting ready to do Passover in the beginning of the year. And you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And then he gives all the instructions for the whole week of unleavened bread. So the Hebrew year actually begins in the month of Aviv, which is in the spring. It is not in the fall, which is determined by the ripening of the barley in Israel. Specifically, the new year starts with the first new moon after the barley has reached the stage known as Aviv, A-V-I-V, indicating it's ready for harvest. So then we scroll down to Exodus 13:4. This is the day you're going out in the month of Aviv. They're going out of Egypt. The word Aviv, or Abib, depending upon how it's spelt, refers to barley that is in the ear, nearly ripe, but not yet fully hardened. That's Exodus 13:4. Why does it matter? The ripeness of the barley was essential for the wave sheaf offering, because that's what they do on the day of first fruits. They wave the sheaf. That's Leviticus 23:10-11, which had to be presented during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. If the barley wasn't ready, the new year could not begin, sometimes requiring a leap year to delay the start until the barley matured. So if the barley wasn't mature in the month of Aviv, they would wait another month. They'd wait till the new moon, and the barley would be Aviv. And then, so some months you had 12, some years you had 12 months, some years you had 13 months. This agricultural marker ensured that Israel's calendar aligned with the Creator's rhythms, not just a lunar cycle, which is what people try to keep now, but harvest readiness. It's a beautiful example of prophetic timing woven into physical reality. So here's the kicker. Biblical calendar is land dependent. If we're going to keep the calendar that God gave us, it has to be land dependent. Do you know how many years they were out of the land? And how bad they lost track of what time it is? The Hebrew calendar isn't just lunar, it's agro-lunar, meaning it relies on both the moon and the agricultural cycle, especially the ripening of the barley, the Aviv, and the timing of the feast. And that means that the Bible calendar is anchored in the land itself. You can't know what time it is if you're not in the land. So here's the prophetic implications. If Israel's out of the land, they don't truly know what year it is. And that means, on the prophetic timeline, like Daniel's 70 weeks, it may be miscalculated if based on a corrupted calendar. And we have a corrupted calendar. The enemy relied on human reckonings, may be misled about divine timing. I don't think the enemy knows what time it is either. The remnant tuned to spiritual science rather than human clocks may be the only ones truly aligning to what's going on. The second coming may be a covert operation. If the enemy can't read calendars because they're all wrong, well, God may use misalignment time to veil his strategies. So they didn't keep the biblical calendar from 70 AD until 1980. That's how long it was before they start checking the barley. That's how long. And then we've got the Hillel fixed calendar, which starts in 358, which is the rabbinical calendar. And they wanted to keep everybody on the same page, and so they invented a rabbinical calendar. Well, we have the Gregorian calendar here. At the time that Yeshua was living, they were using the Julian calendar that was developed by Julius Caesar, and that's what this text said to me today. Well, Jesus would have gone by the Julian calendar because that's what they were using when he was alive. Well, you know what? I think Jesus goes by his father's calendar. I don't think he goes by the Roman emperor's calendar. So we don't know what year it is. They don't know what year it is, not just because of exile, but because of calendar corruption. Prophetic timing may be misaligned, and the enemy may be tracking a false clock. So the remnant must be discerning signs, not systems. The barley is silent. For 1900 years, the barley is silent. Now the land is speaking again, and we have to decide who's listening. Where did Rosh Hashanah come from? We just had that. We just celebrated Rosh Hashanah. Where did that come from? That's the head of their civil year. That's another Jewish thing. There's nothing spiritual or biblical about it. So we just need to get a grip. God created a biblical calendar, and no one knows the day, and no one knows the year. Israel says that they are celebrating the year 5786. I can't tell you how many sermons I've heard about this great year coming up that's 5786. It ends with a and so, that's a nail. It's going to represent connections, and we're going to have great connections this year. 5786. Well, if that's true, Yeshua is returning at the end of 6,000 years to begin the millennial rest, according to what we understand. If a day is as 1,000 years, then we still, according to 5786, we still have 214 years before he can come. I think we're a whole lot closer than that. So 2 Peter says, but beloved, do not forget this one thing, that with the Lord, one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as one day. It tells us that in Psalms 2. So if that confused you, what I just said about the 6th and the 7th millennial, I've been teaching through Genesis. You can go back and look at that in the beginning. It's got it all explained, how we believe that we have been given 7,000 years on this earth, and the 7th one is a day of rest. And I actually have that all broken down into millennial years, and you can go take a look at that at my website. Actually, not at my website, at my YouTube channel. Peter tells us a year is 1,000, a day is 1,000 years. And this is what Hosea says, Hosea 5:2. After 2 days will he revive us. In the 3rd day he will rise us up, and we shall live in his sight. So how many years, how many thousands of years has Jesus been gone? 2. If a day is 1,000 years, he's gone 2 days. In 2 days, he will rise us up, and we shall live in his sight. So we are looking for him to be gone for 2,000 years, and then to live with him in the millennial reign for 1,000 years. So there's speculation that as much as 240 years may be missing from the Jewish calendar. There's a huge scholarly debate over all of this, which we're not going to go into. But just like the Roman Church has changed things to suit their control of things, the rabbis have done the same thing. It's embarrassing to admit to your lineage that you have been in captivity under 14 kings in the Persian government. It's easier to say it was 4, which just looks much better to your kids and your grandkids. And that's the things that have been changed that alter the years of what time it is. So let's wrap this up. I really don't want to make this so technical. This is what I wanted to say when I came on here. I just wanted to say their calendar's off. And so is ours. Ours is established by the Pope. We use the Gregorian calendar by the Pope. And theirs is by the rabbi. Need I say more? So there are many things that will happen before the return of Messiah. And we're not looking for an escape, but we're looking for a refiner's fire to make us prepared to endure whatever may come. Matthew 10:34 says, do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. So that's what I have on the rapture. And if you want to go ahead into the other subject or take questions, it's up to you.
Well, I got to tell you, Sharon, that was great. You did a great job. We probably should go to questions because I'm sure people have a bunch. For me personally, you guys, and this may be a very simplistic approach to everything, I just have faith in Jesus. I believe that Jesus is there for me no matter what I go through, and I have proof of that. I should have been dead twice in the last few years, and I'm still here.
Amen.
So, whatever happens is going to happen, regardless of what I think. And as far as the calendars go, I got to be honest with you guys. I have a horrible time with my Google Calendar to keep track of all the interviews I have and these shows and all that stuff. I'm getting a haircut tomorrow at 10 a.m. I've had to look at that like 5 times and say to myself, oh, yeah, I'm going to get my haircut on Friday, I mean, and I even sent my haircut person a text today saying, okay, so I'm coming in tomorrow, right, at 10 a.m. So all these calendars just confuse me. But what brings it all simplistically for me is faith. And in the chat, our friend from Kenya was talking about how, oh my gosh, people here are going crazy over all of that because they're looking at social media, and he's trying to bring them back to the faith, and give them some guidance. Someone else posted that in 1988, there was something about the 88 reasons that was the year. Okay, that was 1988. I was busy on Wall Street. I guarantee you I wasn't worried about the end of time, And so I think we have to go back and rely upon Jesus. If you have faith and truly have faith and you love Jesus, fear doesn't come into that equation. It just doesn't in my small world, So I just want you guys to be encouraged and don't pay attention to what you see on social media. I post a lot of stuff on social media that some people think is serious. I'm like, dude, that was meant to be a joke. I have a weird sense of humor. Kenny C. and I talked about this last night. If you want to see someone that, in my opinion, has total faith, you look at Josh and Christina Peck right now after losing their son. They have faith going through what is unimaginable to many of us, and they're holding on to their faith to get through it. So, we got to kind of take a look at all that and think about where are we in our journey with Christ? Do we have faith or don't we? It's a simple question, but it has really deep meaning, So Sharon, thank you for that. I mean, is there anything else you want to say before we...
I absolutely agree with you on all of that, Mike. This is the bottom line. When you hear all this stuff, I mean, if you know the scriptures, then you're not shaken. That's the problem, is that people are taking things out of context and they're trying to make it say something they only understand a portion of. And we have to take the whole of the scriptures all the way through in order to understand what's being said. And I agree with you. It's about faith. I mean, none of this shakes you up. If you just have a relationship with Yeshua and your heart is ready all the time. If you're ready all the time, then you don't have to go get ready. You just stay ready.
I have to be ready because I can't follow a calendar. So, I mean, it's getting to be my old age, I guess. I got to look up my own birthday. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. I think we're going to stop the recording. And let's have some people chime in, especially some of those from Canada. There's a couple from Canada that seem to really dig this today. So hang on one second.
Thank you for staying till the end. I hope you learned some things. And if you do have questions or comments, please leave them below. We'd love to hear from you. Please give us a like, share, a subscribe. Ring that bell. And while you're at it, go look at this Genesis series that we're doing. It's amazing. You'll be surprised what you learn. Thanks for tuning in, and God bless you.